Hey ho, the box guy here, and we're going to be talking some rainbows and magical girls. Yep, we got Star versus the Forces of Evil in a speed drawing here, in a side-by-side comparison. It's an idea I was throwing around for a while. I didn't know what to do it with, and then I wanted to do a speed drawing of Star versus the Forces of Evil, and I thought, oh, why don't I just stick this idea on this, as there is a few kind of art styles I wouldn't mind doing in Forces of Evil, and I also kind of wanted to do its in-series art style because I think it's very fun and enjoyable to play around with. Might see if I can do another one of these side-by-sides in the future, but for now let's kick off talking about this one. So as always, we start off with the pose of this image, which I decided to have them kind of float mid-screen with no particular background, as both styles seem to enjoy doing this, so I thought I'd have a go at it, and I didn't really mind not drawing a background for once. And to begin with, since this is the most important part, posing and making the overall layout of the image sorted, I proceed to do a not so great job of it. Mostly with Marco's head. I probably should have just gone for a side shot because I was never happy with the actual positioning I chose to put his head in, but whatever, I rolled with it. Nah. So after that flimsy start of getting the pose sorted, I split up the image into the two separate art styles, which is the real meat of this particular speed drawing. We got the bubbly, geeky art style on the left of Star vs the Forces of Evil, the in-series art style, and on the right we've got the kawaii weeaboo nonsense going on in kind of a Clamp-esque art style. Why, you ask? Well, let's start by talking a little bit about the Disney 2D animated series that is Star vs the Forces of Evil. I'm guessing Disney was trying to get a little bit of Steven Universe's pie, that being the kind of like nerd anime charm that is the Steven Universe with its kind of like magical girl inspirations. That being said, Star's creator, Nufsi, created something very charming and unique within itself, and apart from those slight anime references that go on in the series, it really has nothing in common with Steven Universe. But I can see where people do make comparisons between the two, because they both kind of aim at the same sort of culture, not the same audience though, if that's understandable. Nufsi is Disney's second female creator in their TV animation department. The other being Pepper Ann, not Kim Possible, despite what some people believe. Kim Possible wasn't made by a female. And it seems like we just need more females creating animated TV shows, because Star is a genuinely funny TV series with lots of charm, and I believe it to be aimed at a higher audience than you would normally see from this type of show, especially from Disney. Other shows have subtle like kind of things going on that makes you think that it's aimed for an older audience, but Star has a lot of things. Like there's an episode that jokes about puberty quite blatantly on the surface, and it's not something you normally see from these kind of kids shows, and I think it is generally aimed at teenagers and above, and the jokes reflect that, and I think it's very enjoyable to watch through, and I think to an extent the art style reflects that as well, because the art style does have this kind of bubbly, almost kind of like teen kind of vibe to it. It's not too childish, but it's very colourful. It's effectively a magical girl story, with the rainbow scepter wielding magical team being dropped into the lives of a Mexicano family and the male lead Marco. It's very enjoyable. When I first saw the series, the art style came across to me as some kind of weird blend between Homestuck and maybe Cardcaptor Sakura. Really what gave off that Clamp vibe was the kind of scepter that looked like Cardcaptor Sakura's scepter, but that could also look like a Sailor Moon-esque staff thingy. Sailor Moon's not Clamp, but that's my first kind of like thought process on where I was coming from when I started this speed drawing. So the in-show's art style is all curves and wavy lines, not using straights all that often unless they're emphasizing something or trying to draw the eye, because there's this, for example, the wand has a straight on it, and there will be sometimes you'll have like magical objects or some sort of thing happening, and usually they have a straight on that object and it will draw the eye in, but most of the character models utilize nothing but circles and curves. I think that it gives this kind of like bubbly feel to everything, which I really enjoy. This curvy art style also helps to exaggerate movement and allows them to step in and out of the character models quite a lot when they want to do this, and I think it's all the better for it. Clamp's art style is much more realistic, but kind of doesn't shy away from the extending limbs and stuff that goes on here as well. You'll see a lot of Clamp art where have extremely long limbed characters, and they're completely out of proportion, which it never bothered me, but it's not strictly realistic. Like you'll have characters with their legs that are as long as the rest of their body put together, often being out of proportion. I kind of did that a little bit in this one, specifically with Star's legs and with Marco's back arm. His back arm would be probably broken if we were going to go completely anatomy correct, but whatever. That's the kind of art style that the Clamp art style kind of allows you to do that because of the weird elongated limbs. Another distinct feature about the art style is the way that the faces are made up, and it often makes them suffer from flat face syndrome, where the eyes look like they're on a flat plane all the time and not a curve like the actual head would be, which is a quirk of the art style, but it never seems to bother the way that Clamp does her art, because they always have like straight on looking or side on looking. There's a rare occasion where there'll be tilted faces, but they'll never be really extreme, which is probably where I went wrong on the Marco's head, because I was never really happy with it even when I finished the work, because I decided to give him like a tilted head. I probably should have just gone for the side look. It probably would have looked way better, but I picked that and I stuck to it, and whatever. But it's very interesting to look at the foibles of art styles like this. Like, I don't particularly like that, like having that kind of eye shape, because they're so overwhelming to the head. But they're the quirks and the little nitbits that you get from doing another's art style. I've never been bothered about being anatomically correct or anything in my work, because I'm not really an artist. I'm a cartoonist. All my pictures tend to be over exaggerated, and that's half the fun of it. I'll let the real artists do the proper pieces of art with anatomically correct limbs everywhere. And talking rainbows and laser puppies, we've got them in the background going on with a few hearts and some butterflies. They're just background filler. I did put them some thought around where I was placing them on the screen, so they're not too obstructing and they're kind of leading the eye a little bit to specific areas. And I made sure not to put one in the top left. That is a thing you don't do if you can help it, is putting anything in the top left, because when you're from the western half of the world, you tend to view pictures from the top left and follow it down like as if you're reading a page. And so the puppies there all kind of like on the top there, leading the eye down towards the main characters. That's a little bit of just compositing and like layout there. There's a marker for a series that's truly amazing, being able to have laser shooting puppies and rainbows and hearts and butterflies just floating around the background, and for it not to be out of character of the whole theme of the series. For the kawaii part of this like puppy thing going on, I did some weird stuff going on. I had some like very stereotypical anime eyes in one of them, and did glowy eyes in the other, and later on I adjust one of the puppies to have like black dots, like the weird chibi-esque looking stuff that comes out of the east. I was just playing around, having fun with it, because I didn't really know what I was going to do with the puppies, because they have a set art style within the series, but I imagined what would a Japanese artist take beyond that. Now the line work on both are very vastly different. The Clamp line work being much more delicate and thin, and taking longer to actually think about and put on the page, even though they're almost undefinable from the background at times. And on the other half of it being the in style of Star, it's thicker and more form defining than the Clamp stuff. And it comes down to these two art styles, that one is more what's one more interested in, the positioning or the contextualizing of the image. And one has the focus like Clamp, which is more about the contextualizing of the image, where they're really only there to separate the colors, and one has the job of positioning, and posing, which is the art style of Star versus the Forces of Evil, because it's more there to convey the form's silhouette more than anything, and to give the sense of like the body movements. They both have a job to do, and I both think they do the jobs quite efficiently. I'm actually more partial to line work that also doubles up as being shading work with thickening lines, but neither of these do that per se. Like I prefer to do that. I think I accidentally dipped into a little bit of it when I was doing the star picture, but they do have line variation in both pictures. It's just they're not there to convey lighting as much as they're there to convey the form and contextualization, like in the clamp picture. The clamp picture is literally, at times, they're just there to separate the two very opaque color schemes from the background and the character. Talking about color now, is the clamp art style uses a lot more watercolor, ink-based look to it, and comes off with a lot of like washed out, very opaque color schemes to them, with maybe one or two vibrant colors to offset the whole image. Like, for example, you might have a character with a red ribbon that flows through their whole outfit and will tie up the whole image's color scheme, where the rest of it's being almost white, maybe washed out yellows, maybe white blues. I didn't really use that when I was doing my perception of it. I did wash out some of the colors a little bit, but I wanted to use the color schemes from Star versus the Forces of Evil because they're very poignant to the characters. But Star Forces of Evil is almost the exact opposite, where it's all vibrant colors and it has a very huge color scheme to it. Like I think the theming of Star vs. Forces of Evil tends to be rainbow, which is a very embracive theme to have, but it pulls it off really well. Sometimes it will have slightly opaque colors in the background, like you're seeing in this image. I've used very light coloring purples and blues in the background, like a sky, which is what they tend to do, and then they tend to have like objects and foreground elements and characters use vibrant rainbow colors, and they have like spots of different colors all over their outfits. I think Marco tends to be the same colors, but even he's dark skinned and has like a very vibrant skin color and a very vibrant like hoodie color. And then you have like other characters in the backgrounds and students that will have like hair tinges and stuff like that. It's a very interesting art for color, and I really enjoyed it. And what I did is I just washed them out a little bit for the clamp side of things, so that you would be seeing the slightly different color variation as the images unfold, but they'll be the same color sets. With the shading, I went for like a textured style brush for the watercolor stuff to keep to that theme, and having that texture gives it a slight feel of like maybe it's being painted on paint, being painted on like textured paper. And then I would cut into it and slightly blur and smudge the edges so that they have distinct shapes to them. Sometimes I'd cut into them harshly, sometimes I'd make sure the smudging was persistent so that the colours almost blend together. And I also slightly altered the Lineworks shading so that it blended into the shading a little bit more easily. And again, it made those edges less defined so that it was closer to syncing colour on colour into background. Kind of like the clamp work. But like I said, I wasn't just looking at Clamp's art style, I was mainly having that as my main focus, but I also kind of checked out some of Sailor Moon's kind of stuff going on because it's another influence from it. It's very 80s, 90s stuff. I didn't look into anything past that. Like I wasn't looking at modern anime stuff because the art styles are so vastly different now than they were back then. And then for the shading on the in-series art style, I just decided to do a very stereotypical kind of like shading method with some smoothing with heavy shading lines and then cutting into it a little bit, but then I added a little bit of like circular cuts into the shading to have it blend into that like rounded circular style of the overall picture. I think it worked out quite well. It's something I like to do sometimes, is trying to make the shading look implausible, and I think it works with the art style. Other than that, I just went over the whole piece, touched up the areas, added a bit darker shadows here and there as it went along. I added some white particle-esque stuff going on in the clamp style picture, as it's something that clamp style pictures tend to do, and it helps piece the image together. And then I put a overlay texture on top as well. And I just went in and tweaked here and there. I think I played around with Marco's anime face a little bit more because I was, like I said, I was never happy with it, but at some point I just decided to leave it what it was. And on the main picture, I was much more happier with the in-series art style than I was one. It's to me, it comes more easily because that's the kind of art style I work with that like kind of cartoon-esque look. I do tend to have a bit more realistic proportions than this one, but I really enjoyed doing both of them. And I hope you enjoyed this side-by-side comparison. It's something a bit different. If you liked it, let me know in the comments, and maybe I'll do some more like this. Oh, well, thanks for the view, and I'll see you next time.
I'm talking rainbows, I'm talking puppies.